Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. I am your host, Shenell Felix. And whenever you see me sitting here, it's because we're about to have those conversations that you want to have while I ask those questions that you want asked. This morning, we jump straight ahead to our discussions, and it's my pleasure this morning to have Assemblyman Kelvon Morris, who is also the minority leader of the People's National Movement. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Shenell. Good morning to all of Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago.
Excellent. Now, there are a number of things that are happening, and you recently had a press conference where you raised a number of those issues, whether it's stem from, outstanding payments to contractors or the healthcare system, whatever that might be, in terms of where we are as an island and where we are going, and the role of this administration in leading us there, or the lack thereof. This morning, we want to start by talking about some of those outstanding payments. We know that when this administration came into power, that was one of the big topics, paying off contractors that were on the system even before they got into power. And then there are contractors who have recently engaged the THA, who have not yet been compensated, whether it be, from Carnival or you name it. So tell us a bit about that and why you felt it important to raise that particular matter at this time.
So, Shenell, this matter is one that, is near and dear to me because it is really about, the livelihood of Tobagonians, and it is bigger than the politics. We're talking about especially our small and micro business people. These are your caterers. These are the people who, depend on, they can't go a long time without being paid. And therefore, when you have these people coming up to you, telling you, I would have supplied catering services since 6 months ago and I'm still waiting for payment. You have people who supply printing services, and they are waiting over a year from festivals to be paid for the carnival of last year, and a carnival is coming back around. You're talking about, when you talk to persons in the public service, basic items like printing paper, toilet paper. People have to bring their own toilet paper from home. At this point in time, it's that bad. In my office, I could tell you personally, when we had the budget, luckily I am familiar with the technology, but I couldn't even print my speech because there's no ink even to this day. That was in June, and we are now in August, and that situation has not been rectified, and therefore it begs the question, after $10 billion would have been allocated and spent, why are we having these issues where basic payments are not being made to Tobagonians who need it the most?
Right, and even when you hear the conversation that surrounds the fact that no politician actually pays any outstanding, they don't actually go into the system and, file the paperwork and push a check, And there's the question surrounding the public officers and their role in the delays of these payments. And, sometimes we talk about the issue of releases being available on time. Where do we draw the line between this being an administrative error or downfall, as opposed to it being the responsibility of the public servants and the politicians?
Well, I recall the Chief Secretary one time posting on his social media and advising the public that when they encounter challenges like this, do not blame the public servants. And he even encouraged them to blame the liared politicians. And therefore, if that held true then of course, I believe it should be held true now. And more than that, what we are seeing on a more serious level, what we are seeing is that it is not so much about not having the money, because even now we had an allocation of $2.6 billion. 3/4 of the way, which is 3/4 of the financial year, only 1.4 billion would have been expended, which means we have still about 1.2 billion in allocation available for your last quarter. Therefore, it means it's not a lack of funding, but it is a management issue as to how you manage and prioritize your allocation. For example, in the Assembly Legislature, I'm being told that monies were taken out of the Assembly Legislature vote that would have otherwise been utilized for such recurrent payments like getting those amenities that I described, your ink, etc., etc. So it is about how this administration is currently prioritizing the available allocation and how that is being used. Because I can share with Tobago, this administration would have, and sometimes gives the impression like they're being disproportionately disadvantaged when it comes to previous administration. But the fact remains that this administration, year on year, has received an increase on the allocation. And just to remind you, in 2021-2022 fiscal, they got $2.357 billion. That was increased in the 2023 fiscal to $2.52 billion. In 2024, that was increased to $2.585 billion. And recently, the last allocation was $2.599 billion. So every year, there has been an increase in the allocation, and therefore it is not for a lack of not having enough, but it is more how they manage the funding that is creating the issues.
Right. And then, there is a difference between the actual allocation and the allocation being transferred. And in conversation with the Secretary for Finance, she would have highlighted that, on a number of occasions, you have late transfers being sent. And this would have impacted the THA because there's often that the overspend.
So just to be
that
clear,
are incurred at the bank.
Previously, the previous PNM administrations, they were receiving that funding month to month and of course had to deal with those challenges. This administration would have negotiated and was facilitated by the then Minister of Finance, providing them with 2 months allocation in advance, and they are getting their third just in time. So they have even more favorable allocation. The Secretary is on record as saying that this has allowed them to reduce their overdraft interest that they're paying. So clearly they are actually having it even more favorable. Yet we are seeing more and more instances where persons are taking longer to receive payments. There are people waiting, and we're talking, these are bread and butter issues. We're talking about you who would have worked, and I don't mean you personally, but you're a THA worker, you would have worked your 3-year contract, because now most people work 3-year. And after going through that period, successfully completing that period, most persons now are waiting years to get their gratuity, and that is unfair. When you go to the accounts, it is not accounts people that don't want to pay. They are telling you there's no money in the vote. And it therefore means it is how this administration is managing the funding, why there is no money in the vote. It is not the public servant who is making those decisions as to where the money goes. And just for example, and I always bring the issue of overseas travel. There's always money for overseas travel. Why? Because they prioritize overseas travel. And it is the same thing. If they prioritize paying people, and there will be money there, but for some reason, there always seems to be money to travel, but no money to pay the people who would have provided a service, and that is unfair.
Understood. And, in a recent press conference from the PDP, they would have come out and said and have said that the Dodds Diving Championship in Charlottesville was basically a waste of money when they look at the other critical issues that Tobago is faced with that needs financial attention. Do you agree with those statements?
I wouldn't go so far. I commend the attempt, by the organizers. I think based on all that I've seen, it was well attended, and it tells us that there's an appetite for Tobagonians to enjoy, sports in a different kind of way, because this diving thing is new to us. But in the same breath, my challenge is you must dance a yard before you dance abroad. And I say that in the context of, we have Tobago Football Association. They have their competition yearly, which treats with developing our young and honing our young talents. You have the cricket, you have hockey, you have basketball, you have all these various sporting disciplines. And if you speak to the administrators, they would tell you about the challenges they get in getting funding assistance from the THA. And therefore I'm saying, if we have money for Dodds diving, then we should also prioritize the development of sports right here on the island, because you hear it. Parents complain about children. They have to be worrying if their child will be able to attend a meet in Trinidad because the division of sport or the schooling education program may not have the funding to send the children, and they have to go down the morning of when they should have gone down the night and properly prepared, etc. So my challenge is two things. Very good, but at the same time, we need a comprehensive sport tourism plan. It cannot be that it is piecemeal, where you're hearing this one time, then it goes away. Because up to a couple weeks before, I don't think anyone knew about this happening and how it originated. And this is another challenge I have with the THA, the lack of transparency, where things happen. Up to now, we do not know. Nobody came to us and told us what is the budget, what the THA is paying for, how the funding is being allocated. They treat us like if we are fools, and we are not. You are intelligent. All of Tobago are intelligent. We are intelligent people, and we can accept and have the discussions. Be transparent with us. There's a trip happening right now where I don't know the number because no one told us how many people we funded. Imagine our money, Tobago people money, is being utilized for persons to go to the New York for Tobago Day. We don't know when they leave, how long they leave, how much money has been expended. Nothing. And this is disrespectful. And I think we as Tobagonians, and we need to put away the politics for a little bit and just ask ourselves, are these things acceptable?
Understood. But, even when we look at that Tobago Day in New York, we talk about the importance of diaspora engagement and having that connection with the diaspora to allow them to have their their involvement and utilize some of their resources to help boost Tobago's economy. Do you not feel like events like Tobago Day celebration help to engage with the diaspora?
Shenell, that Tobago Day always existed. Tobagonians on their own, groups as well, would have always traveled and participated as part of, that diaspora connection. And if the THA feels compelled that they too should be heavily involved in it, no problem. But what I'm saying is the lack of accountability, because at the end of the day, this is public funds being expended. What is the criteria for those who are chosen as opposed to those who have to utilize their own money? We don't know the contingent. You cannot for yourself look at the list and say, well, I could understand why Tom, Dick, Harry is here, because Tom is into culture, this one is into agriculture, etc. There's no list, there's no groupings, no criteria as to who is making the list. And this is public funds. And ultimately, when it's all said and done, there's absolutely no reporting. Nobody comes back to us and says, well, we would have had these engagements and these are the outcomes. We need to move governance to a different level where Tobagonians feel a part of. It cannot be that I am emperor and ruler and you all are the commoners, where you all simply do as I say, and we have to change the way we govern, we have to change the way we represent, and we have to change the way we treat Tobago people.
Understood. We're going to take a quick break right here and we'll be back with much more of this conversation right after this. So see you soon.
It's a brand new morning, rise up to a brand